Hey there, fellow adult collectors. Welcome back. David Eon with something for your consideration up from the Open by Chance Toy Museum, and that is Durham's Young Kung Fu Chop figure, made in 1973 by Durham. And I have shown Durham action figures before. I've shown the MASH movie figures, famously made by Durham. And this is another example of a Durham action figure. Most of the stuff they made was like novelty kind of toys. Nothing too spectacular, the kind of things you would find in Woolworth, your typical dollar store novelty. But this was made in 1973 and obviously is a adolescent Asian boy with a karate chopping arm action. But what's so special about this, besides the fact that he's vintage? What's special about Young Kung Fu Chop is that he is a grail bootleg figure. If you're into bootlegs, like for example, some of the most famous ones are Robert Kopp. You remember Robert Kopp, the furniture of law enforcement? Or Mr. Rock, the infamous bootleg of Mr. Spock? Young Kung Fu Chop here is a bootleg action figure. And a grail for bootleg collectors, especially to find one mint on the card like this. But I know you're probably wondering, what could this possibly be a bootleg of? Kung Fu, the television series starring David Carradine, 1972 to 1975. Only 3 seasons, but really one of the best television dramas you're ever going to watch. That show was amazing. And so what does Young Kung Fu Chop, the little boy, have to do with David Carradine? Well, if you've never seen the show, the Kwai Chan Caine character, who David Carradine represents, is actually represented by 3 people, because there are many memory sequences within the show where David Carradine's character thinks back to his life growing up in a Shaolin temple in the 1800s. So aside from there being an adult Kwai Chan Caine, there is also a teenager and an adolescent Kwai Chan Caine, and that's who this is supposed to be, an adolescent Kwai Chan Caine. And ABC Television found out what Durham was doing and said, "Pull that crap off the shelves. How dare you?" And so Durham did so, and that's why this figure is stupid rare, as I like to say. Very extremely difficult to find at all, let alone still on the card. And this is a really excellent example of this card. Typically when I've seen Young Kung Fu Chop on the card, it looks like someone ran it through a clothes dryer. The card is banged up really bad, and usually the blister is very yellow and with a lot of splits and cracks and chips, which happens when these things turn yellow. But as you can see, this blister, that's very clear. That is a nice blister. This is really, the one that I have here is the best example of Young Kung Fu Chop I've ever personally seen. Take a look at the back of the card. There's nothing really there, just an instruction for operating the karate chopping action. Something that Durham liked to do with action figures was give them a push button so that the arm could raise up and down. And in this instance, of course, it's a karate chopping action. Again, Durham known for really crappy packaging and really badly constructed action figures. They had some cowboys and some other karate men that they had done that were about 8 inches tall that I have seen completely fallen apart inside unopened packages. They're really poorly constructed figures. So that, with the fact that this was pulled from the shelves, makes this extremely rare grail bootleg territory, as I had pointed out. If you had a top 10 list for grails, Young Kung Fu Chop needs to be on it, and is for many bootleg collectors, which is getting to be a very popular market in recent years. People going back and looking for these rip-offs of real action figures or other licenses that got into trouble and had their toys pulled from the market. They're extremely rare. I think the rarest of them is, of course, the Mr. Rock rip-off of Mr. Spock. Have you ever seen this before? Have you ever seen Young Kung Fu Chop anywhere? What do you think of them? Is this something that you would want? Are you into bootlegs? Or maybe you just really appreciate 70s action figures? I gotta give it to Durham. You know, as I pointed out, their packaging and the construction of their figures is typically pretty poor, but they knocked it out with the artwork. I think they did a great job with this artwork. It's not like stellar artwork like the packaging on G.I. Joe or Masters of the Universe, for example, but they did a good job on this. And I always love the artwork that goes into the packaging, especially on these vintage figures, something that has been lost on modern toy manufacturers. They don't seem to think about that sort of thing anymore. They don't consider how important the artwork is to the aesthetic appeal of the overall product itself. Super 7 gets it with their reaction figures. I'll give it to them for the reaction figures. I'm not a fan of reaction, but their card art is excellent. So what do you think of Young Kung Fu Chop? If you ran across this for a reasonable price, is it something that you would want to have in your collection? Have you ever seen this before? If not, what are some other Grail bootlegs that you know about that you would love to have in your collection? Really an outstanding condition card considering what this is and the history of Durham. You can see even there that it's unpunched. Really exceptional. Belongs in a museum, and so it is. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Tell me about it. Tell me what you think. Share the video if you can, subscribe if you're new, check out some of our other content. We do showcases, we do unboxings, we do toy discussions, industry discussions, weekly roundups. You name it, we probably do it. I hope you got something out of this today, that you enjoyed seeing Young Kung Fu Chop here. And I hope to see you again soon.